Hey, what's going on, you guys? My name is the Raptor, and what you're seeing now was actually not the original idea for this video. Right before Season 10 ended, I was gearing up to prepare a Season 11 prediction video based on whatever they showed us at the end of Galactus vs Unicron. However, they really didn't give us that much information, and while the introduction of the tarot cards has given some of us ideas already, I didn't feel like there was enough there to make a video on it, at least not yet. So instead I decided to talk about something we know for a fact will be happening in 2024, assuming they don't change the number of episodes in Season 11, episode 200. This is a very big milestone for the Death Battle series, and we have no reason to believe the crew will not treat it as such. So that begs the question, what the hell will it be? Today I'll be going over some popular ideas for the subject, whether or not I think those ideas are likely, and then go over my frontrunners for what I think it could be. This is bound to age horrendously, so make sure to leave your own predictions in the comments so we can all be wrong together. Alright, let's go. One of the big things I've heard for episode 200 is the possibility of a redone fight like Mario vs. Sonic 2018, and I thought that seemed somewhat likely up until the new Goku vs. Superman came out. We know Death Battle doesn't like to revisit fights that often, and for them to do it 14 episodes after the most recent one doesn't sound right to me. I also just wouldn't want this for the sole purpose of wanting to have episode 200 stand out from 100. I'd prefer if we weren't making a trend like this for these incredibly rare episodes. And on that note, Bowser vs. Eggman. I love this fight so much, I definitely think it will happen, and I could see it being episode 200. But again, I'm not sure if I want a pattern to be set here, and frankly, I'm not sure if Death Battle would either. When they have all the flexibility in the world to make episode 200 its own thing, and when these kinds of episodes don't occur that often, I honestly don't see why they wouldn't do that. There are so many other characters and matchups that are deserving of this occasion. I could be dead wrong, and if so, I'll still be happy since I love Bowser vs. Eggman, but those are my thoughts on that. Another big one that I've heard a few times is Joker vs. Giorno, which I totally understand the thought process behind. It's become infamous in its own way. However, if the current tease for Season 11 is indeed pointing towards it happening, I highly doubt Death Battle would be hinting at episode 200. They like to keep milestone episodes and finales close to their chest. And even aside from that, I feel like episode 200 needs to be more relevant to Death Battle themselves, not just big in the community. Death Battle can do whatever they want with this episode, which makes figuring this out impossible in the first place, but we gotta narrow it down, and this in my opinion is the most logical way to do so. Something like Light vs. Columbo is more along the lines of what I'm thinking, although for something as big as this, I don't know if this fight's been in the limelight long enough to be chosen above all else, but who knows. So now I'll list off 5 matchups I think really have a chance for this, in no real particular order, and we'll see whether or not any of them hit the mark. The first one is the Serial Mascot Battle Royale. An obvious first move is to go with one of the biggest fights Death Battle has been talking about casually for ages. This would naturally be done for a similar reason as 150, Macho Man vs. Kool-Aid Man, however I wouldn't really see that as establishing any sort of unnecessary pattern since these fights have nothing in common other than Death Battle bringing them up a lot. Death Battle also knows why Macho Man vs. Kool-Aid Man didn't perform too well views-wise. It wasn't due to a lack of interest, it was some kind of sponsorship problem that led to the video not being pushed out on YouTube, so I don't think they'd be scared to do this episode. Granted, I would prefer if this one was done in a more traditional style, unlike the last one, but regardless, I still think this is in the cards. Plus, I don't really see this episode being considered for a finale, so if they still wanted to celebrate it, this would be a good way of doing so. My next pick is kinda similar in that it relates to a more historical side of Death Battle, Master Chief vs. Samus Aran. I don't have too much to say about the reasoning for this one. If you're not aware, Haloid was one of the biggest inspirations for Death Battle as a series, so I wouldn't be surprised if they wanted to take a direction like that this time around. Granted, I could also see them wanting to do this fight later, closer to the end of the series, whenever that may be, honestly, and I think there's a lot of room to get something for episode 200 that's a little more interesting by some measures. But still, I had to bring it up because it's definitely a possibility for this kind of thing. I wanted to cover as many ways as they could realistically celebrate episode 200 as possible, so there you go. My third main idea comes from more of a straightforward perspective: Simone the Digger versus Kyle Rayner. I will admit this somewhat overlaps with the just doing what's big in the community idea, but if there was one example that I could see Death Battle going with for this, it's this one. The popularity it gained in so little time is unlike anything I've seen before. It has a flawless Brandon Yates commission track, and it was on Death Battle's own podcast and champion poll. It is quite literally impossible for the crew to not see how far it's spreading, and with that kind of build-up, I could see it as a real consideration. To me, this would almost be like a milestone for the fans. We don't know that's what Death Battle would be going for, but I see it as a possibility, and this would be perfect for something along those lines. And either way, it's only a matter of time before we get this episode, right? Yeah, I hope so. Next up on the list, Mickey Mouse versus Bugs Bunny. Again, this to me is more than just a popular matchup, but in the sense that it's a comparison that transcends Death Battle. The two most influential cartoon characters on the planet cannot be ignored, they cannot be half-assed, and especially now that Death Battle is using more cartoons on the show, this is the milestone that could show it off properly. It's not personal to Death Battle, but it's so dominant in debating and opinions, period. That sounds like a good motivator to me. Now, as I've said before, I don't know if Mickey versus Bugs is necessary for season 11 in general, now that we're getting Wily versus Tom, but if Death Battle was planning it for episode 200 beforehand, I don't know if they'd be able to change things around just like that. And besides, this is probably my new most wanted episode now. I'd still be incredibly happy whenever it came out, and it'd be a great fit for the 200th episode. Everyone knows that. And lastly, I give you the oh so obvious pick of Ruby Rose versus Maca Albarn. Before you say anything, the Death Battle crew has at this point expressed that they feel they can finally start considering producing this episode, which, may I remind you, has been confirmed to happen too. So it is in no way off the table for this. It's obviously a huge mainstay for matchups the crew has talked about. It's a Rooster Teeth fight and the best one that fits something like this. This is not just a matchup, it is quite literally the company's matchup. And similar to the serial Mascot Battle Royale, I personally see this episode fitting much better as a special occasion than as a full-on season finale. I don't think there's a better way to pay off on this fight. Regardless of what form it takes, Death Battle is 100% going to make it special to honor the late Monty Oum, and I think the stars could align for it as episode 200. It would be perfect timing all around, in my opinion. You might disagree, but at least just don't say it's impossible, because it's really not. So yeah, that's pretty much where my mind's at right now on this topic. Again, Death Battle could do whatever they want, there's no way to be 100% certain about anything like this, but I wanted to do this anyway, sue me. Of course, feel free to leave your own thoughts in the comments below, like and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this, but no matter what you do, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I can see you again in the next video. Peace out.